Hi guys, how are you doing? It's Elaine Bintz, certified health coach and personal trainer, and we're on day 13. I hope everybody is having a great week, and I hope your 2022 is going great so far. So today's topic is the first macronutrient. So this is a breakdown in a series of 3 videos. So today's video is about carbohydrates, and then we're also going to do a separate video on protein and fat. So this macronutrient is probably the biggest part of your diet. Unless you're doing a low carbohydrate diet, which I'm not a huge fan of, but if you are doing that diet, we can talk about how your body will be adjusted and how your macros would be adjusted if you are doing a low carb diet. But assuming today, for today's purposes, you are not doing a low carb diet, we're going to talk about how to run the numbers and different specific groups of people and how their body responds to carbohydrates. So first off, what are carbs? Okay, so carbohydrates in the body are converted into glucose. So your body takes in certain foods and they're not all created equally. So let's say, for example, you're on a whole foods plant-based diet. You're eating more foods like fruits and vegetables, legumes, peas, beans, non-processed or whole foods. Other carbs you could be eating are things like processed foods like crackers, cookies, candies, pastries, anything like that you are not going to actually go into nature and find naturally grown from the earth. So oftentimes people will ask questions like, should I do a low carb diet? And the first question I have is, why do you want to do this? And 2, how are you going to do this? I am fully in support of improving the quality of your diet. But if you're doing a low carb diet and you are then consuming more processed foods and foods that might be aggravating, especially if you have any inflammatory responses, any sort of arthritis, I would talk about the quality, especially the quality of the carbohydrates, because that tends to really affect your body. So not all carbs are created equal. That's just something to keep in mind while we're running the numbers today. So a couple populations. One, if you have been diagnosed with diabetes, you definitely want to watch your carbohydrate intake, especially in relation to how the carbs would affect your blood sugar. Also, I've worked with a lot of clients who tell me they are carbohydrate sensitive. So a lot of clients will say, even if they have a very small amount of like pasta, like a quarter cup or half a cup, a very small serving, some of my clients will tell me they get like swelling and bloating in their joints and in their skin, and they can kind of feel it in their midsection. So if you are experiencing those symptoms when you eat things that are high in carbohydrates, whether it's bread or pasta, even your whole foods, your banana, your fruit, your vegetables, you might be carbohydrate sensitive. So those groups of people, they might need to actually eat a lower carbohydrate diet just based on how their body responds, because it is actually really hard to get 45 to 65% of your carbs from whole food sources, because there's less carbohydrate in those foods than in non-whole food sources. So if you're eating extra calories, so often a question I get in the beginning of the year is, I'm thinking about doing a low carb diet, or I'm thinking about trying to switch up some things in my diet, and the question is, if I eat too many carbs, will I gain weight? So first off, carbohydrates in the body are chemically converted into glucose, and then they're stored as glycogen in the muscles. So let's say you decide to go outside, you want to go for an hour walk, and you haven't eaten in a few hours. Your body will literally pull stored glucose or glycogen from muscles and use that for energy to go do that physical activity. If you have an excess amount of carbs in your diet, your body will convert those excess carbs that are not stored as glycogen and convert them into fatty acids, and then yes, your body would then store those extra calories as fat. So could you gain weight eating excess or more carbohydrates than your body needs to perform your daily activities? Yeah, totally. That can definitely happen. So you just have to kind of watch and see how your body responds to what you're eating, and just be aware of when you eat foods and how you feel. So another specific disorder outside of diabetes, if you have been diagnosed with celiac disease, then oftentimes the referring physician will send you to a nutritionist or a dietitian, and they'll talk about doing this diet called a gluten-free diet. So what is gluten? Gluten is a protein found on like wheat and rye and barley and in different products like that. And then if you do not have a gluten intolerance or sensitivity or celiac, a question I always get is, will I lose weight if I go gluten-free? Well, it depends. Again, the answer to that question is it depends. Before you decided to try a gluten-free diet, were you eating more carbohydrates than your body needed? And then if you decide to eat gluten-free and you reduce the amount of carbohydrates you're eating and you feel better and you don't need those extra carbs, yes, you may in fact lose weight and you may in fact lose body fat. But eating a gluten-free diet, unless you need to eat gluten-free, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to result in fat loss or in weight loss. If you have an autoimmune disorder, I do tend to work with a population that has like Hashimoto's. I've had clients with lupus and rheumatoid arthritis, ulcerative colitis. I mean, there's a laundry list of, autoimmune disorders. There is a particular protocol, and it is called the AIP diet, which is the autoimmune paleo or autoimmune protocol, and there's particular foods in this diet that you'd include and then you would take out, and the carbohydrate, one of the big carbohydrate groups that if you do have an autoimmune disorder that they would eliminate from their diet are the carbohydrates that fall into what's called the nightshade fruits and vegetables. So those are some of the specific groups of people is in regards to physical activity. So if you are in the category of someone who is completing about 300 minutes of physical activity per week. So if you're doing about 60 to 90 minutes per workout at a moderate to a high intensity exercise per your workouts, you might need more carbs than a person who is not getting 300 minutes of physical activity a week. So the U.S. guidelines right now, the U.S. physical activity guidelines recommend that the average American get 30 minutes of physical activity most days of the week. So if you're doing 60 minutes, you're doing double of what the average is. So unless you're getting this amount of physical activity, you won't need to run these numbers for the extra carbs because your body doesn't need them. But if you decide, a lot of people, first of the year, New Year's, they want to get more active, do more movement, which is awesome. I 100% support that. You might notice that the food you were eating before might not be properly fueling your body. So how do you know if you're not eating enough carbohydrates? Low energy, fatigue, maybe you're getting headaches, maybe the type of carbohydrates are not fueling you properly to have a productive day and to think clearly and to have a great workout. So you do want to look at the quality of the foods that you're eating. You're going to have a different energy after lunch if you've eaten, say, green salad with maybe some quinoa and some sort of a protein base versus maybe eating a donut. The chemistry that is in the food you eat literally affects your energy level throughout the day. So let's run the numbers. Let's say you are in this group. So if you have a calculator, go ahead and grab your calculator, or you can use your phone. So I'm a former endurance athlete. I'm a former long distance runner and triathlete. So I tend to attract a population of people who are interested in endurance activities. So in addition to the training part of how to prepare for the event, also I help my clients with the nutrition aspect. So let's run the numbers. So let's say you are in the category where you are completing 300 minutes or more per week. And as you're increasing your volume or the amount of time you're dedicating to physical activity, you're going to need to increase your calories in order for your body to keep up with the movement and the activity so you don't lose muscle and that you can maintain your energy for everyday living. So let's do the numbers. So the equation is, if you are doing 60 minutes of moderate to high intensity activity to equal about 300 minutes a week, you want to consume 5 to 7 grams of carbs per kilogram of body weight. So in the United States, we use pounds as a weight measurement. So we have to convert pounds into kilograms, and you put your pounds divided by 2.2, and that gives you kilograms. So I'll use me as an example. So I weigh 140 pounds. So I take that 140 and I divide that by 2.2. So that would give me 63.6. So we'll say about 64. So my body, I weigh about 64 kilograms. So 64 kilograms, and let's say pie in the sky, let's say I'm getting this much physical activity, which honestly I'm not. But say I get motivated and I have the time, then I start doing more movement. I would then take this number, and let's go low end to start with. This number, your kilograms times 5, so that's 64, and multiply that number by 5, and that would give me 320. That's a lot. So for me, if I wanted to do this much movement, I would need to increase my carbohydrate intake to about 320 grams of carbs per day. If I wanted to convert that number into calories, remember there are 4 calories in 1 gram of carb. So I would take that number and multiply that by 4, which would equal 1,280 calories coming from carbohydrates. And that is only one component. There are 3 macronutrients: carbohydrates, protein, and fat, so which we'll talk about the next 2 in the next 2 videos. But if I were eating 1280, right now, I am not getting that physical activity, but if I were getting that physical activity, I would need extra carbs to fuel my body. So those are just some equations you can use. There are plenty of other equations. There's, of course, carbohydrate loading when you're talking about specific activities, depending on the athlete, like a marathon runner or triathlete. And then at different times, if you're doing like natural bodybuilding, there'll be times where you're going to tweak your water and your protein and your carbs and your fat in order to get the particular physique that you're looking for. So again, my name is Elaine Bintz, certified health coach, personal trainer. Again, this is day 13, carbohydrates. I hope this information was useful, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye.